We just got three massive pieces of XRP news, and one of them is something we have been waiting for a very long time. I genuinely believe these developments are going to push XRP to a brand new all-time high. In this video, I want to break down exactly what just happened because this is some of the most important news we have seen in a very long time. And something just happened with Bitcoin that I think is going to make XRP flipping Bitcoin even more likely than ever before. As always, your support means so much to this channel. Thank you to everyone who takes the time to like these videos and subscribe. Those two simple things genuinely help me out more than you know. Also, if you are looking for a good place to buy XRP, make sure to check out my favorite exchange, Uphold, down in the description. But with that said, let us jump right into it, and I hope you enjoy the content. So I want to start by talking about something I believe represents a serious risk to Bitcoin going forward. Now, I am not saying this is going to bring down the Bitcoin network or anything like that, but I think it could completely change the equation when it comes to whether another asset could ever flip Bitcoin. For a very long time, it was genuinely hard to imagine anything flipping Bitcoin because Bitcoin was seen as this special decentralized neutral currency that nobody owned and nobody controlled, and it completely hid behind the powerful idea that nobody knew who actually created it. But here's the truth. Somebody did create Bitcoin. And whoever that person is when they get publicly identified, it is going to completely change how people look at that asset. Now, what we already know is that people in positions of power already know who Satoshi Nakamoto actually is. It just has not been made public yet. We actually learned during the Ripple versus SEC case that the United States Department of Homeland Security had already met with the people believed to be behind the Satoshi identity. So we have essentially just been waiting for that information to reach the general public. Now, I want to share something really fascinating because I am now more convinced than ever that I know who the main Satoshi actually is. This did not come from some major personal investigation I did myself. I came across a post written by someone who has done an enormous amount of research into this question, and his conclusion is that Satoshi Nakamoto is actually Jack Dorsey. I am not going to go through the entire post, but my jaw literally hit the floor when I read it. It is on my X feed, and you should go look at it because it is absolutely phenomenal. The evidence presented is almost impossible to dismiss. Some of the most compelling points are that Jack Dorsey was one of the very first cypherpunks and has been skilled at coding throughout his entire career. He knew all the programming languages needed to build Bitcoin. He studied math and computer science. He even went to a high school where students were called miners, which is a funny coincidence given what mining became in crypto. Beyond that, there is evidence that at one point, Satoshi accidentally logged into a public network and his VPN was exposed, showing he was located in California. Jack Dorsey happened to be in California at that exact same time. Then there is the fact that Jack Dorsey left a public manifesto in 2021 saying he wanted to create an innovation that would change the world for the better without anyone knowing it was him who built it. Just think about that statement for a moment. It suggests he had been planning something exactly like this from very early on. There is more. This post mentions that Jack Dorsey's best friend wrote a book about him and specifically said that Jack is living a double life behind a very famous pseudonym. That is a remarkable thing to say given that Satoshi has always hidden behind a fake identity. There are also major Bitcoin transactions that happened on Jack Dorsey's actual birthday and on the birthdays of people close to him. And there are Bitcoin wallet addresses containing personal details linked to Jack Dorsey's life that are also connected to Satoshi's original wallet. After reading all of this, I have never been more convinced that Jack Dorsey is Satoshi Nakamoto. Now, why does this matter so much? One of the biggest advantages Bitcoin has always had over every other cryptocurrency is the mystery surrounding its founder. The fact that nobody knows who created it has given Bitcoin a unique and powerful sense of neutrality and credibility. But if the founder turns out to be Jack Dorsey, Bitcoin suddenly becomes no more special than any other crypto project in the market. And from many people's perspective, it might actually become worse because Jack Dorsey is not someone that everyone likes. One of those people in particular is President Trump. Trump has been publicly at odds with Dorsey before. Dorsey was one of the people who heavily restricted Trump's presence on social media during his first term. And here is where it gets really interesting. President Trump has actually been posting about Ripple and XRP on his Truth Social account recently. We are watching a complete shift in the dynamics of the crypto world. Trump is clearly showing support for Ripple and XRP, and at the same time, we are finding out that Bitcoin may have been created by someone Trump openly dislikes. If Trump already has information about who Satoshi really is, and if that person turns out to be Jack Dorsey, that becomes a massive obstacle for Bitcoin under this administration. Bitcoin would no longer be able to hide behind the mystery of its anonymous creator, and a lot of powerful people might find themselves opposing the person who originally built Bitcoin. In my opinion, this is exactly what opens the door for XRP to flip Bitcoin. The moment Bitcoin loses that special anonymous founder story, it becomes just another cryptocurrency, but one with worse and slower technology that cannot compete with XRP. And if the current administration is actively embracing American digital assets that are solving real-world problems and improving the financial system, then I genuinely believe it is very possible that XRP can one day flip Bitcoin. Now I want to move on to the second major piece of news, which is extremely exciting. We are now hearing report after report that the SEC's appeal against Ripple is going to be dropped completely. I have said multiple times on this channel that I personally would have preferred the case to be fully settled because a settlement might have tied up some remaining loose ends and provided even more clarity. But whether it is settled or dropped either way, this is absolutely fantastic news. To remind everyone where things stand, Ripple won the original case in a major way. XRP was ruled not to be a security when sold on public exchanges. A settlement might have provided slightly more clarity on a few remaining questions, but dropping the appeal entirely is still a massive win. Reports are coming in from people very close to the SEC, including John Reed Stark, who is one of the biggest cryptocurrency skeptics out there. Even he is essentially saying this case is completely over, it is going to be dropped, and we are probably only weeks away from that official announcement. It is incredible to watch this finally materializing after so many years. The Ripple SEC case appears to be fully behind us now. We are just waiting for the official confirmation. Once that happens, the level of institutional adoption we are going to see flowing into XRP is something I do not think most people are truly prepared for. And if that coincides with Bitcoin losing its special status as the one crypto with an unknown founder, that combination is going to be a complete game changer for XRP. Now here is the third piece of news, and in my opinion, it might be the most significant thing we have seen in the XRP ecosystem in a very long time. We now have an actual bank using the XRP ledger. Brasa Bank, which is a major Brazilian bank and the largest foreign exchange provider in the Brazilian market, is going to be issuing a stablecoin directly on the XRP ledger. This completely destroys the argument that no banks are using XRP or the XRP ledger. This single announcement counters every single claim made by critics on that front. This bank is using the XRP ledger to increase efficiency, grow profits, and scale their business into the digital future. And this is just the very beginning. Once one bank starts doing this, the rest are going to be forced to follow. The banks that embrace this next-generation technology are going to gain a massive competitive advantage over every institution that hesitates. Every other bank is going to be forced to catch up or risk being left behind. What makes this even more powerful is that Ripple has already onboarded over 500 banks onto their RippleNet platform. With essentially the flip of a switch, all of those banks can be transitioned directly onto the XRP ledger. What we are seeing right now with Brasa Bank is the very early beginning of that happening at scale. Banks in other countries are going to lead the way because they want to get ahead of the American banks. But eventually the American banks will have no choice. If they do not adopt this technology, they are going to fall behind, and they know it. This is the early stage of exactly the transformation we have been talking about for the past 2 years. After the Ripple SEC case gets wrapped up and after legislation starts providing proper clarity, institutional adoption was always going to follow. And that is exactly what we are watching happen right now. One of the biggest concerns in this community for a long time was whether the technology was actually ready for large institutions. Were the banks going to adopt it even if the regulations became favorable? What we are seeing right now answers that completely. ETF after ETF is being launched. New partners are being added to Ripple's list practically every single day. Banks all over the world are adopting Ripple's technology. The long-term thesis could not be playing out more perfectly. And all of this is happening while XRP is sitting at a critically important point on the price chart. XRP has been holding a major long-term support level for the past couple of months and is now pushing back up toward resistance. It looks like XRP is forming a massive symmetrical triangle pattern that is coiled up and waiting to break out strongly in one direction. Given everything we are seeing in the news right now, I cannot picture any realistic scenario where this breaks to the downside. Maybe we get a rejection at resistance, maybe we bounce around for a few more weeks while the Ripple SEC case officially concludes, but the setup looks absolutely primed for a major move upward. The technical chart looks outstanding and the fundamentals have never been stronger at any point in XRP's history. For the very first time, we are watching widespread real-world adoption of digital assets happening at real scale. President Trump has now reposted about Ripple and XRP twice in a row on Truth Social. I honestly do not know what else some people need to see before they recognize what is happening. The institutional adoption is taking place in real time. The regulations are being put in place to fully support this technology. And this is exactly what Ripple has been building toward since the very first day the company was created. They always knew the banks were not going away. They knew that regulatory clarity was going to be absolutely essential. They have been working on building those relationships since day one. They have more licenses than any other company in this space. They have more institutional and government relationships than anyone else. They are working with 27 out of 37 central banks in the entire world. Nobody else is even close to those numbers. While everyone else was busy building DeFi platforms for meme coin traders and retail speculators, Ripple was focused entirely on what actually matters: the big money, the institutions and governments that control trillions of dollars. Ripple always knew these massive players were eventually going to step into cryptocurrency, and what we are watching right now is just the very tip of the iceberg of that starting to happen. What we are going to watch unfold over the next couple of years is going to completely transform the global financial system as we know it. And video after video, week after week, Ripple continues to lead that transformation.